factors that weakens the sovereignty principle is information revolution and globalization and probably fourth industrial revolution. All of those impacting state system or territorial based state system. I want to direct your attention to security dilemma. Part and parcel of state system, part and parcel of sovereignty-based system is security dilemma. Okay? If you do not have central government or world policing organization, you inevitably suffer security dilemma. Security dilemma. What is security dilemma? You seek your own country's security, which is rational and justified. But that rational choice inevitably undermines your neighbor's security. This is security dilemma. So on the sovereignty-based IR, you live with this security dilemma. So countries are on their own to protect your own security. Okay, that's the dilemma. You cannot resort to like the UN. You cannot resort to Council of Europe. You cannot resort to G20. It is simply left to you. That's security dilemma. Now, another, so these are rules, okay? Rules of the game, basic state system, properties of state system, and like at the same time you have the security dilemma problem. Another way of reviewing modern international relations, I think, is balance of power. Balance of power. I don't know how many of you, in the first paper, how many of you review those, your chosen period of IR, how many of you used so-called balancing, power balancing? But this is clearly one of like ways of reviewing modern international relations. Balance of power. What is balance of power? Balance of power means this. It can mean several things, but in general, it means state's power used to balance those of another state or group of states. In other words, in modern international relations, you witness this regularly. Very active, regular, and this balance of power is done through alliance formations. I said that, okay? Alliance formations. Sometimes you do it unilaterally if you are a big power, okay? But in many cases, balancing is done through regular alliance or coalition formations. Okay, you make friends to counter your neighbors. You make friends, you make alliances. Okay, therefore power is shifted, balanced. So you see this a lot in those years, hundreds of years. You see this a lot, like shifting alliances, therefore changing balance of power. This is definitely one way of reviewing those years. Balance of power can refer to several things. First, it means simply ratio of capabilities. Ratio, status quo of, right? Ratio of power capabilities. It doesn't mean equal, okay? It doesn't mean equal distribution, simply means just ratio, literally. So it means ratio, any ratio of power capabilities between states or between alliances, like so for instance between NATO and Warsaw Pact. Okay, balance of power between NATO, Warsaw Pact. That means power is equally balanced. That does not mean power is equally balanced between NATO and Warsaw Pact. Just simply means ratio of capabilities between NATO and Warsaw Pact. The second meaning, equal ratio. Equal. Okay. Sometimes it is used to mean relatively equal ratio. Or process of it. Balancing. In other words, the act of changing ratio of capabilities. That's the meaning of balancing sometimes. So it could mean either one of three meanings. So, again, I'm curious to know how many of you made some reference to balancing in terms of reviewing your chosen period, balancing, like, right? When some country rapidly rises in power, then the neighbor feels threatened. Then decide to do the balancing act unilaterally or along with your allies. Right? That happens a lot. So those balancing, counterbalancing. Counterbalancing, I think, can be observed by, in the case of Germany. Germany kind of did that. Especially after the reunification of different, right, units within the so-called Greater German kind of entities. They were reunified. Then the coalition, a lot of coalition, like moves. So counterbalancing. So it's kind of interesting, realists, they kind of think that this is how stability is obtained, if not peace. Through this balancing, stability can be maintained. So you think, looking at those 500 years, how whether stability was maintained through those different shifting, balancing coalitions, shifting coalitions, how those contributed to maintenance of stability, if not peace. You think, you read the material, how realistic these realist prescriptions. So sometimes war broke out, but soon balanced by shifting alliances. Then stability comes back, right? So lasted for a while, then another war, then shifting balances, stability comes back. This is realist view on modern international system. Alliances are key in so doing because alliances are cheapest and quickest effective way of expanding your power. Alliances, effective way of increasing your power. I think we have to remember balancing is not or. We have the opposite act as well, which is bandwagoning. Balancing is kind of act nullifying powerful country, but bandwagoning is the opposite move. You jump on the rising power, go with it. So you have balancing, but on the other you have bandwagoning as well. Okay. Then, so I mentioned great powers and middle powers. I want to shift to this graph figure. Let me ask you some questions. What is your name? What comes to your mind when you look at these two figures? How would you explain or analyze these two figures?
In terms of power, the US have a lot of power.
Okay. Okay. US is.
I mean, in terms of GDP, they have not in the global sense.
By the way, this is as of 2007.
Oh, yeah.
As of 2007.
Isn't China a bit on the rise?
So this is GDP, economic power.
Yeah.
Okay? This is military power. Different, right? Different. How different? How different?
Long-term and short-term.
Huh?
Long-term and
Oh yes, this is yes. What we learned is this is long term, this is short term. Right. Yes, but that's right. But besides that, what else? What else can we interpret from these two figures? What's your name?
Look, the U.S. is spending disproportionate amounts of money on military compared to the rest of the world, especially compared to the GDP. While they only have like
It's an interesting analysis. She said, obviously here, the portion of US is different, right? The portion of US, ratio of US power, right, in the GDP realm, right, and military realm. The portion of US is different. Portion of US much bigger here, military area, much bigger. The reason is, according to her, the reason is America selected to spend much more resources on the military than on GDP. What do you think?
I think it's a bad idea.
Why?
Well, in the US, there's a lot of things that are lacking, like healthcare and education. And so it's like they care more about their image to the world than the actual people who are living in the country.
Right. I think it was a mistake. It was a strategic mistake by the US government. Or it's overstretch. Like they haphazardly they were becoming, right? Imperial, right? Imperial, military centered imperial overstretch, disregarding economic problems internally. Therefore, U.S. economic pie is shrinking. Okay? I think it's a good explanation. Yes, it's well taken. It was a mistake. It was a choice by the U.S. Right? How else can we explain these two different figures? How else? I think great power, middle power, right? This shows rest of the world, including middle powers. Middle powers are rising, right? Middle powers are rising, and great powers are shrinking, right? That's another way of looking at this. Middle powers are expanding. And encroaching on advanced countries, great powers, economic power. Right? That's another way. Middle powers are going up, rising. Right? And economic power is much more dispersed. Economic power is much more dispersed than military power. Right? Because great power, economic portion. Great power, military portion. Right? Middle power portion of the military. Very small. But economic portion of middle power, much bigger. So I think this shows power distribution. Different power distribution. Economic power distribution,
Military power distribution, different. Right? And I think actually many things can be said about this. Many things can be said. Maybe American power is declining, but economic power is first declining. Military power still kept. You can say that. So it'll be much more interesting if we have some
similar figures like earlier time period, like
1970, same figure as of 1970. or 1980, it'll be much more interesting. Right? I think as of 1970, this pie probably will be like this. 1970. And American may be looking at this. 1970. So this is exactly how we do the analysis. Power analysis. We do this a lot. Okay? We do this, a lot of this. And kind of so middle powers are rising. Middle powers are rising. I think gray powers happen to be those that have comprehensive economic and military power, right? But middle powers, they lack either one of power, right? Economic or military. So I want to shift to this power distribution. Power distribution. This is important way of analyzing international system in realism. Power distribution, which is what we did. And realism evolved to transform further into neorealism. Neorealism focuses a lot on power distribution. And neorealism, differently called structural realism. This is 1990s adaptation of realism. So they explain international relations in terms of structure. Structure means distribution of power. I'd like to introduce the greatest scholar in neorealism, Kenneth Wallace. Kenneth Wallace. So he introduced this concept, polarity. Polarity. So international relations can be analyzed from different power centers, number of power centers. So for instance, there will be multipolar international system and tripolar international system or bipolar, unipolar international system. It all depends on how many power centers you have. So, and the power transition theory was also introduced. The holder of the largest top position is challenged by second ranked power. It is power transition. this figure will be useful. Different power distributions in the international system. Multipolar system, bipolar system, and bipolar more stable than multipolar, much more stable than multipolar. Unipolar system, I think the real unipolar system began with the end of the Cold War era. So real unipolar system began 1990, lasted until 2010. Again, another concept that we have to introduce is hegemony. Hegemony. So one state holds the most of the power in the system, in the international system. So they enforce, so this hegemon enforces rules and arrangements in both economic and political, military. So hegemonic stability theory holds that 19th century stability and 20th century stability or post-Cold War stability is explained by hegemony. Because hegemon provides some order. This is similar to central government. Reduces anarchy. Promoting free trade. And providing hard currency stability as well. So I think we learned that after World War II it was bipolar, but within the liberal world, US hegemony maintained. Hegemons, they promote market and trade, free trade. But sometimes America was ambivalent toward their role as a hegemon. So when America was ambivalent, when America turns to isolationism, international stability was shaken. So okay, I think we can call it a day today. And we have some left, but we can do it next Monday. So when you come back on Monday, we finish up realist chapter on alliances. So we are going to cover NATO versus Warsaw Pact and alliance system in the Asia Pacific. We are going to discuss that and shift to chapter 3. Chapter 3, liberal theory. That's for Monday. Thank you.